Good evening, and welcome to another segment of the New Black Leadership Coalition. We're live here in the great studio of Intellectual Radio. My name is Gregory Singh, hosting the show today. I am very, very thankful, very, very blessed by the best to have yet another opportunity to get it right. I am always, always thankful to Almighty God, the Creator, for giving me just another day on this planet that we refer to as Earth. And we take each and every opportunity like this very serious, especially over these precious airwaves. And I'm very, very thankful for our ancestors, man. I'm thankful for everyone that have come on this planet to make a difference and give their energy, their time, their expertise, their gifts, their talents and skills to try to make a difference for, self, family, community, and humanity as a whole. Because what is it worth to do all of that and then you're not really a true noble servant? So I'm thankful that God blessed me with that spirit of understanding that if it's not for that reason, then it's vanity. So I'm glad to be here sitting with a couple of real cool brothers, swag. Is that Dwayne?
That's Dwayne.
Two knowledgeable brothers right here. We're going to talk about a lot of things. I know, Brother Dwayne, you and Brother Omari, very, very powerful brothers in a lot of ways in the financial world, etc. I mean, you got a really huge resume. I had to write down some stuff. I was like, Dwayne is doing a lot of things. When Sister Cassie was here, Cassiopeia, we talked about making a switch. Mm-hmm. It's time for us to switch our thinking. Mm-hmm. It's time for us to, it's like a paradigm shift, because we can talk all day, but until we switch our behavior, we have knowledge, but we have not been organized in such a effective way to where we can take full advantage of all of that information that we have. And you have some very valuable, your presentation really at our last quarterly roundtable discussion on economics. Mm-hmm. And your piece, man, got a rounding applause on the equity crowdfunding. Right. It was really huge. So welcome you and Brother Mari this evening, man. Glad to see both of you all here. And we could get right into it. I was going to do a commentary real quick. And it's not too much to say about it because it was really on the stuff in Libya. I just heard a few comments earlier on some other platforms. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it should make all of us very, very angry because as we talk about the plight of Black folks here in America, we have our people, man, suffering all over this damn planet. Mm-hmm. And so we really need to meditate and think about the foolishness that's going on across these waters as it relates to our people, man. It's not just Libya, but all over the Africa. And unfortunately, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton are complicit in what's happening in Libya. Yeah. You need to go and do your homework. And I know we go along to get along and we try to be politically correct, but unfortunately, they have been complicit in what's happening in Libya and Africa, the destabilization of African countries. And it's a shame, but it's all going to come out. So you can't talk about no legacy because unfortunately, that right there will hurt your legacy because that's wicked. And I mean, the atrocities that's happening over there, and most of our people, I don't see a bunch of posts in Facebook, yes, and stuff on that, But anyway, I got two knowledgeable brothers here. I'm gonna come back and talk about that maybe next week in detail. But when I think about crowdfunding, like a crowd, but then equity is, the quality of being fair or impartial. Equity. So we talking about fairness with sharing the wealth, fairness and impartial with empowerment. Because you said something very significant. We got to make the switch. Brother Maury and Brother Dwayne, they got unbelievable knowledge. But how do we make the switch? I drove past Chinatown, couldn't find a parking space. They supporting their own. Whether we stop in there or not, they gonna be in there making sure all of those restaurants or business are successful. That's a behavior that we've been around, yet we fail to do what we need to do for ourselves. So I know that there's been some bills that you're responsible for down in Springfield. Talk about that, but give us a basic definition of what it is. And I know you're into real estate, right? And how can that empower us? How can that enrich us? Is this your way of empowering our community, getting us out of deep poverty?
Right. So, and thank you very much again, Greg, for having us here tonight. So I made a statement at that meeting, and I think that it fits in well with the mental cycle, if you will, of people that are in other communities, like you talked about Chinatown, or if you're talking about the Tri-Tail area, any of these other areas that have these ethnic roots to them, where they're being managed and run by the people of that community. And I made the statement that there are enough of us doing well enough to build enough to help the rest of us. So what you find is that those from inside their community that have means pool their resources and put their monies together in order to create benefit for the broader community at large. So if they want to create jobs, they get together and they put together the business that create the jobs they want. They don't go downtown and picket for jobs and ask for jobs and beg for jobs, even, if you will. They create them on their own. Equity crowdfunding is a tool that while it's recently kind of just become available to us, is a tool that allows any community, quite honestly, to do that on a more robust level, but particularly for our community, where that's been a bit of a difficult point, a difficult thing for us to get into doing for various reasons. But this allows people with very little money to people that are in much better positions financially to work together to make contributions that are equitable, and meaning that they're fair, meaning that for every amount of money that you put in, for all of the money that you put in, you have a reasonable right to expect a return. Right. So and that's put in place on paper. It's all legal and documented that your individual investment would be set to achieve a particular amount. Whether or not that happens, we talk about that later. But so this is a process that allows us to really take up the mantle and start to invest in our own community versus waiting for people to invest in our community that historically have not done that and that are showing us no proof that they're ready to do that right now.
I thought at one point you had to have a net worth of like 200,000 or more to become the minimum amount.
Right. So if you were what they called an accredited investor, so like you look at a skyscraper downtown, a hotel, or one of these big apartment buildings, those are often funded through equity crowdfunding projects among what they call accredited investors. People who have a net worth of over $1 million or more, or an annual income in excess of $250,000 for a running period of time, somewhere around 2 years or maybe 3. So
2 out of the last 3 years.
This was how we felt, we never got to participate in that game.
Right.
We didn't fit that category, but the people who had that type of money pooled their resources together and funded large projects like that, whether it's hotels again, apartment buildings that you see popping up all over the West Loop and
Right.
downtown, many of them are funded under means just like that. And there's websites and different things you can go to see that. So equity crowdfunding, as it came across through the legislation created by the Small Business Advocacy Council here, and as a side component of what was already in the Jobs Act on a national scale, gave the everyday person the opportunity to invest in community-based in projects they don't necessarily have to be community-based. They can be across any industry scope, technology, all these different things. So the things that at one time we were donating to Kickstarter about,
Right.
now you can have those same projects put in an equity crowdfunding component, and everybody who puts something in can have a reasonable, at least expectation that they could earn something from it as an investment. Again, because it's an investment, nothing is guaranteed. But the idea is that if you're going to put something in, you want to at least know that you can get something back.
The opposite word is accredited.
Sure.
I mean, you can jump in, Brother Maury, anytime you want to, but
and I think what I'd add to that, because you asked the question, how do we make the switch? Right, and I think that comes first and foremost by educating ourselves to what these types of opportunities may be. And I think the other part of it is really engaging in partnerships that are powerful for whatever it is that you may be interested in. I mean, just case in point, while Dwayne was doing all that great work that he was doing with the SBAC and in real estate and really learning about what this was to be and putting his best foot forward with respect to getting the legislation passed in the state of Illinois, and then now being sort of an ambassador for equity crowdfunding, and might I say, probably the most well-known, well-recognized ambassador, white or black, in any community for equity crowdfunding. I was in the purview of it doing my own work as an investment banker. So those skyscrapers, other types of projects that require large amounts of funding, I was one of those people who was working with community members who weren't our own, who were putting together these larger projects, most notably in the legal cannabis space.
Oh.
And I'll share this with everybody just to give them a frame of reference of the work that we're doing now, boots on the ground, is that, so I worked for a company that was a market maker in the legal cannabis space. So what they did essentially, and this is an example, let me just make my point right off the bat. This was an example of what it is to actually, and I just want to underline something that Dwayne said, pool our resources. See, we make a big case for that we need to be buying black, and we should. And we should be supporting black, and we should. And we should be building black, and we should. But if you notice, other communities, even so-called minority communities, don't make as much of a case for supporting each other, because there's something far more profound that they do that they don't really talk about, called pooling their resources.
Yes, sir.
That's the thing that they do. They invest together. So that's what we're trying to do, is really expand the broader conversation of buying black, of building black, of supporting black, to investing black, and really picking that apart and determining what that is and what it looks like and what it can mean. So in my experience, and we've done this in a couple of different veins, but the last company that I worked for was a company called MJSC. And what we did was we took people, those accredited investors who were looking to invest in the legal cannabis space, and we paired them up with entrepreneurs who were looking for capital. Okay, and that made us what's called a market maker. So I got a chance to really see what a growing industry really looks like. Because for anybody who's ever looked at it, you know that in the whole area of cannabis, it's not so much a question of if it's going to be legalized, it's more on a national level, it's more a matter of when. So you have people who are throwing money at this thing, they get it. It was like cryptocurrency before cryptocurrency, right? Everybody's like, hey, man, we need to go west. There's the green rush happening. You need to put your money into it. At least those people who were aware of it and who had money to put towards it. And so now it's growing to whatever degree it is. Mm-hmm. But where are we in the process? And this is what actually made me make the switch. What I found is that with all the wealth being created in that particular industry, hundreds of billions of dollars, bordering trillions of dollars, what I found that there was still 10 million arrests in the period of time that 8 states were being legalized for recreational purposes, 30 states were being legalized for medical purposes, largely decriminalized in the rest of the country. And yet our people, 85% of those 10 million arrests were us in a country where this particular drug was being decriminalized, widespread. So this is just an example of ways in which we're being shut out of certain industries while other people are making money hand over fist. But rather than get mad, rather than protest, I mean, you can get angry, but the point is, what are you going to do at the end of the day? And what we're suggesting is that there's an opportunity now before us where we're able to pool our resources in a way that we never have been able to before, by virtue of A, identifying those businesses, our businesses, that are ready for an investment, and B, beginning to understand for ourselves what it looks like to invest in our business. You ask 9 out of 10 black folk, would you invest in a black-owned business if you thought they were viable? They say, of course I would. Right, but how many can you point to, really? And that's the work that we're engaged in right now, educating our people on both sides, both on the business side as well as on the investment side.
So when you look at, say, a small business, a group of black folks that really want to pool a resource, or we've got them to make this, we've convinced them to make the switch. What's the next step? Is it put up or shut up? I mean, or do we have, because it seems like we don't have enough time to, or time is not on our side for us to be in discussions when you this work, right? It works.
Right, it does. So there is a, after taking a long and deep look at equity crowdfunding, I came up with what I presented at the NBLC meeting that day, which, and I present pretty much everywhere, and I'll be doing it on December 20th at the Hyatt Place in Hyde Park from 6 to 8 p.m. It'll be a very information intense meeting, discussing that and a few other things that the SBAC has done and worked on, and how that creates a broader benefit to our community. But it's called hyperlocal equity crowdfunding, right? So it's where you take the law essentially, and you work the amount of money that you raise can come from literally anywhere inside the state of Illinois. It could be money coming from people that are investing from Cairo or Decatur or Shawnee or anywhere in the state of Illinois. But what the idea is to make sure that the people inside our community are aware of these investments that are becoming available in the community, so that they can get their money into those investments and then start to take advantage of the benefits of those businesses being procured or expanded through this. So keep in mind, it's not just for new businesses that we want to open, but it takes the better businesses in our community, the long-standing businesses, some of which may not have some struggles financially, but may not have the money to expand and grow and create more jobs. This is essentially their way of going public inside their own community, and then through that process, helping to eliminate some of the historical impediments to the sustainability of black businesses in our community, one of which is support from the general populace of your community. So the idea is that if I'm raising $100,000 for a restaurant or another business, if I'm raising 20%, 30% or more of that money from inside a specific radius of the community that the business is in, then I'm thereby ensuring support and other degrees of support from the community that is now invested in it. And that's almost an immediate reversal or an immediate switch in our mentality in terms of how it affects these other areas.
How much money do the average person need to have in order to be involved in terms of when we talk about pooling our resources? Some people have more. Does that mean the more you put in, the more you get out? I mean, how does that work?
Well, just on a very simple level, it's like when we were young and we would, be doing our thing on a Friday night and everybody say, ante up. You got it could be as little as $100. It could be as high as up to $5,000 under Illinois interstate law. So if all you got is a couple of hundred, and Mike got $4,000-5,000, and he got $250, it's every man put in what he puts in. But the amount that you're entitled to as an investor, whether it's structured as equity or debt, is relative to the amount that you put in or invest.
Sure.
So you can just say, hey, I just want to make this investment to show my support for what's going on. And if I get a return, great. But then as you start to see this process snowball and everybody's excited and getting involved, and now we're taking the opening of a business or the expansion of a business in a community and making it an event that everybody can share and enjoy in, and then share and enjoy the fruits of that business being successful down the road.
Right. So Amari, for both of you all, can this stop the influx of gentrification? Can this stop I mean, when you look at the disappearing of our communities, can this really address right away segments where we are economically deprived?
Sure. Sure. On another level, and just that, I think it does something better than stop gentrification. It actually turns it on its head and then uses or allows us to use it for our own benefit. It actually
That's right.
turns it inside out. So I don't so much want to stop gentrification. I want to.
You want the business, yeah. You want the business.
I want to gentrify some neighborhoods, or at the very least achieve the better part of what's there to be had about gentrification. Dwayne has an interesting take on this, and I'd like him to share. But there's a part that I always share with people in the sense that when you look at Chicago, for example, 24 out of Chicago's 77 neighborhoods are predominantly Black occupied. Okay, I say occupied because we don't own the real estate that's there. Less than 25% of the real estate that's owned in our neighborhoods is owned by the people who live there. You don't see that, obviously, because the people who own it don't live there. So less than 24%, less than 1% of the businesses are owned there. And anybody who hears that statistic should be horrified at that, because that's, we talk about supporting each other by buying Black and whatnot. Just start with where you live. Just what happens if a group of us say, hey, you know what? Every 2 flat, 3 flat, 4 flat, 20, 30 unit that we can find, we're going to buy it. And if our people rent from anybody, they're going to rent from us. Wealth created to begin with. And we ain't got to go outside. We ain't got to it's right in our countries. We know exactly where they are, where the boundaries are.
No, you live that way because we were over at the Bronzeville coffee shop.
That's right.
And I don't go past Starbucks or any of them every day now. I mean, when I feel like I need that stuff, I'm going to Bronzeville.
That's right.
I don't care where I'm at. I just got to drive until I get to Bronzeville. That's making the switch. So we got to live by that.
Right. And that's in to piggyback the point about gentrification, though, that's in a community that is undergoing certain elements of what people refer to as such, right? But if you take a look at the parade of homes that's being built in the 3rd Ward, it's a great project. It's wonderful. Where they're building 42 new homes in a very short radius between Calumet and Indiana from 39th to 45th. It's called the 3rd Ward Parade of Homes. If you can Google it, it was, the aldermen put it out there, and they've got a lot of Black contractors out there working. You can drive past and see these houses being built. It's a wonderful project, but they're going to be priced on a upper 4s to upper 5s.
Not so beautiful. 6.
Well, no, it is beautiful. For one, because there's a great many of our people living in the suburbs now. They can come back and take ownership in the city even though the taxes are going up here, they're still much lower than they are in the suburbs. They can move back to the city and stop that gentrification if they prefer to do that. Or we use equity crowdfunding to create and build businesses that circumambulate that area so that the $8 to $10 million in annual revenue or income is coming to that area can now be spent with these businesses that we've placed right inside that community. So if you go down 43rd Street now, it's still somewhat desolate in terms of businesses. So what are we going to put there to benefit from the inevitability of what's happening on the real estate side? And are we going to be able to convince and talk to our people that are in the suburbs and say, hey, if you want to come back, don't stand out there paying $20,000 a month for property tax and then complain about what's going on here. Make the switch. Come back to Chicago and let's build these communities together. Personally, I'm okay with it happening, but I'm like him. We need to benefit from what's going on by using a tool like this that allows us to invest collectively in creating benefit for whatever comes there.
What communities are you more, I would say that you're working probably more intimate with besides Bronzeville, Hyde Park?
I do a lot of work in Auburn Gresham. We've got projects that we're working on for business owners that will eventually launch equity crowdfunding campaigns that are really kind of all over the place. They're on the west side, they're on the south side, Auburn Gresham, South Shore, they're all over. We want to be able to make sure that we can use this to put our imprint on Woodlawn before the real rush, the real gold rush before the library and all that comes. That stuff is happening. So complaining about it happening is moot, right? If he gives you a CBA agreement, great. But equity crowdfunding gives us an opportunity to create our own community benefits agreement because that's what it's designed to do. So we have to be more focused. That switch, more than anything, is about us taking control of our own circumstances. And even if you and I don't agree with each other as people, we can agree with the fact that the deal being offered on the platform is a good one for everybody, and a good one for you as an investor more than anything. So you know what return you can expect for that $5,000 investment or that $100 investment.
I love it.
You know what that is, and you can adequately assess the true viability of the business. So this is not a let's throw everything up against the wall and see what sticks. These are going to be businesses that are viable, that are vetted, and they'll be vetted 2 to 3 times before they even become made available to the public. So these are things that are going to be trustworthy, at least from the standpoint that you know it's a legitimate, viable business that you're investing in, and not.
No, I love it, brother. If you and Brother Maury and whoever else is involved with this, and you lead in this, if you made $1 trillion, we should applaud, because our community will benefit from that. We so accustomed. We were talking about last week, just this mindset. Because when we say making a switch, when you were giving your presentation a few weeks ago, it was like, no, turn on the switch first.
Right.
You know, it's one thing about making a switch. Now, what about when the light comes on? So light is on right now. I mean, what you were doing in Springfield, and you know, I went on Facebook and I read some of the things that you were doing, and I actually I saw some of the videos. Now, did you all talk about this with Mr. Rounder? I saw him with you guys at the BOP Center.
Right.
You didn't talk about crowdfunding.
No, actually, so to give you a little bit of history on that, the work that, whether you're dealing with equity crowdfunding in the bill that we got done there, or now the reduction of LLC filing fees, which is going to be signed into law pretty much any day now. They're working on a signing ceremony.
Oh, okay, good.
But those things were things that Governor Rauner supported while he was a candidate the first time. These things were bipartisan issues. Our organization does this lobby on a nonpartisan level, and this was not done by just me. This was me being a part of that and coming in and reflecting my passion as a citizen of our community in getting these done. And so I studied it and did everything I could to help inform our community about it. So it makes it feel like I'm the one responsible for it, but it was the entire Small Business Advocacy Council that helped to put that together. We have a policy committee and people that work very hard on getting these issues done and creating meritorious lobbies for what it is that we're promoting. So it's not about protests, it's not about pointing fingers at people, but it's a hell of a lot of power when you walk in a room with 20 colleagues from chambers of commerce throughout the state of Illinois, and you're coming on a nonpartisan basis. So the politician, the person you're talking to, they don't know that they got your vote. They have to sit at that table and work for the individual vote of each individual person, because we do not endorse candidates. So they have to work. They're in that room working just like that. So when we've already dedicated our vote to certain people, it's easy for them to play us how they want to play us, because they know they got you.
Who would resist this? Who would be in resistance to this? Because this will empower our community. This is like.
Well, I want you to understand, though, this is not the reason why it's not being resisted yet, in part because the law was not created for our community. It was created for the populace in general.
Figured that.
What I saw as a vision was to take this and take what would be a side effect and turn it into a strategy by which we could build faster and more quickly, and use that hyperlocal element to create that greater impact. But the caveat is that the same people who own our community now could use this to buy more of it.
Man,
so it's not available to only us, and that's the reason why the speed of what we're doing is very important.
I know.
And the sharing of the information collectively is very important, because as other people really get wind of the possibilities of this, they could very well just, they'll buy anywhere. It's not specific to any community.
Let me ask Brother Maury this. The church, the black church.
Sure.
If the black church and some of the real top mega churches, if they use this whole piece, what possibilities are there for black folks when it comes to farming?
The game changer. Yeah, it'd be a complete game changer. With respect to, I mean, you got to look at the church and just talking about the church broadly speaking, the religious community, our religious community in mass is the biggest exercise in pooling our resources that we've already demonstrated. And so it's not an uncommon conversation to, from the pulpit, say, hey, look, we're going to put our pennies together and begin to become the economic engines that we possibly could be, i.e., University of Chicago, i.e., the Catholic Church, two of the more richer groupings that you'll ever find of examples of people who are engaging in economics cooperatively. But really what we're looking to do is change the game for how we've invested together, how we've started businesses together, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with respect to the real estate piece. Even when we talk about investing in real estate, we mostly think about it from the standpoint of like, man, I need to go get my credit together, I need to go save some money, I need to go hire a realtor, I need to go take some courses and whatnot. Now we're changing to say, hey, look, you got $100, you got $5, you got $50, you got $1,000, $5,000, whatever you have. Let's put this together. And now we have a viable conduit through which to buy our real estate up, to your point, to start our farms, to create our businesses, to build transportation companies, to really become producers. And I think that's the switch that has to happen, really a switch in mindset from being a consumer to actually producing. We're a complete consumer class of people.
Oh my God.
And once we realize that, once you realize that, wow, our whole society, our whole culture nowadays is being centered around what it is that we can buy, what it is that we can purchase, what it is that we can have on our backs, what it is that we can drive around in, and beginning to switch that mindset and have it be cool and fun and engaging and entertaining to actually own something that's appreciating value, actually have some real power to know you can buy something to show off with, but you just opt not to because you're clear about the more important things in life, which is leaving a legacy, which is having a posterity to leave your children. Out of my mouth. There you go.
Legacy.
Yes, sir.
But then the distrust. There's a huge distrust because our people were just totally outdone with all of the, when people hear about something like this, I guarantee it's folks that sounds like a pyramid scheme.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. I've had people tell me that there's no way in the world that our people are going to stand up and accept this challenge, if you will, to invest and build on our own. And that's not about the fact of it not being trustworthy. They're just, this particular person who was from our community just don't have that much faith in our community. Mm-hmm. Now, from that perspective, the law is regulated by the Secretary of State. Okay, so any company that posts on an internet portal to raise money has been vetted by the portal owners itself, because the portals bear a huge liability for what they put up there. So all of the information is full disclosure. So when you go in and you look at the offerings that we're going to be coming out with soon, you'll be able to look at all of the corporate documentation, the ownership structure, the executive summaries, the revenue projections and actual revenues, if that applies at the time. And so you'll be able to read everything that allows you to make an informed decision. Mm-hmm. And it's not a me get you and you get two type of situation, one for me, one for you, one for me, one for you. Yeah, people. It's not that. This is you being able to make an informed decision for yourself. Now, as a second layer from the portal vetting it out and saying, okay, we're going to put it on this portal. Now the Illinois Secretary of State does a vetting on the company, its ownership, and thus and so, to make sure that all of that's up to par. And then there's another layer in the back office that deals with the element of potential for money laundering. So inside the law, it took a long time for the law to become functional because they wanted to work out these different stipulations to make sure that it was safe and something that you can trust. Now, for us, sometimes our trust is more from people in our community who we trust, like our pastors, like our, certain business leaders in our community can say, hey, this is a good idea. You should get into it. And then folks will just come into it. So like with the cryptocurrency revolution that we see taking place with Bitcoin and Ethereum and all this, a lot of people, I got in because a guy that I know and trust said, hey, you can study this stuff later, get in there and just buy what you can right now. And I did a little bit, not a lot, but I got something. And so I was able to go back and then reference and learn a little bit of how it worked. They say study long, study wrong, while you studying and trying to figure out you want a 6-hour class to be able to invest $100 when we waste $100.
Teach.
All I tell people is this: take your stunt budget for one weekend, your party budget, wherever you party at. Just take what you would spend on the weekend on the outfit, the drinks, whatever, and just sit that to the side and be prepared to invest that in one of these projects that are going to be coming forward.
How do you?
We can do a lot with just that.
how do you organize people and whatever else you were going to say? Go ahead and say it. But the folks, it's one of those kind of things where you really hate to hear those presentations when they say this might not be for you. This might not be for you, meaning that there's a set amount of people. Faith without work is dead, right? Yeah. There's a certain group of people. They're gonna listen to this and they're gonna get. That's why you got to give out some numbers before you leave in a minute. They want this. Yeah. They've been waiting on this away because they have money.
That's right.
They're afraid to put it any place because nobody is talking about anything that they can benefit, and they believe in a community. They know you can't take it with you.
That's right.
So what do you say to those folks that are watching via Facebook Live, YouTube, iHeart, however they'll get streaming this?
Yeah.
What do you say, both of you all, to them to say, don't wait. You can get involved. I know the law is still, we can't do it right now, right? But you organize it.
Yeah, it can be done right now. Well, we're working actively on it right now. It's being done throughout the country and other places right now. This is not, what we're talking about here is not conceptual. It's actual,
happening.
And it's only, we're trying to be the first ones inside the state of Illinois to really do it on a consistent level. But this is going on all over the country. And at the event, I showed you several examples where hundreds of thousands of dollars were being raised by relatively small groups of people at an average of $400, $500, $600, $800. None of those examples I gave you, none of the averages were over $1,000 per person, but 400,000 was raised in 2 months, 3 months. That helped to fund a business.
Yeah, so it really is just as simple as a Google search, and you'll see the validity of it in that respect. Because you were mentioning that whole trust issue. I think sometimes we give ourselves too bad a rap, and it's true, we do have trust issues in our community, but I believe the majority of those trust issues are born of ignorance, and that we just don't know, we're uneducated, and we can resolve that for ourselves real quick, particularly with respect to this. And it's just a matter of just digging in, looking at those examples, seeing that for yourself, but you also, and then understanding all those layers of veracity that we're taking our prospective clients or prospective business owners through who are looking for investment capital. But we're also creating other layers as well, because you asked the question, how do you organize, right? How do you continue to add to this whole process as an institution and make it such? We're adding another layer of it, and we call it the index, the Black Equity Index. So one of the things that we suggest is that, many of us have heard that statistic about we have this $1.4 trillion in buying power, right? And that's true. We do spend about $1 trillion a year.
Buying, not selling.
Buying, right? And exactly, which then begs the question about whether or not it's really power. Because
buying power.
Like you just buying from somebody has the power.
Right.
It ain't you. You spending it, but you don't know where exactly. And are you spending it with your own predictably, reliably, time and time again, right? Most of us aren't driving across town to go to Sip and Savor, but although we should, but there's other areas where we just don't even have a choice in the matter, in terms of our gas, in terms of our flights, in terms of a whole host of other things, right? So what we suggest is that a truer statistic of our power would be what we own and control, i.e. an index, like a Standard & Poor's or a NASDAQ or Dow Jones, but for our businesses. And it's a way for us to, even after our businesses have completed their raises, where we can keep track and you can see how your investment is doing over time. Not only that, but what a lot of people don't understand too is that by virtue of not having this legislation in place, it's kept us from a primary driver in the American economy called angel groups. Okay, a lot of people don't understand angel groups. They're like investment clubs, but they're investment clubs that only accredited investors historically have been able to invest with and through. And what they invest in are real estate, those large condominium projects, small private businesses that haven't gone public yet. And the returns are crazy because there is across the country, not just with Black folk, but across the country, a huge group of small businesses between, say, $100,000 and 15, 20 million that can't get access to funding either. So these angel investors come in. And for those people who don't know what angel investors is, you actually do. Shark Tank is a reality show about angel investing and how that whole piece works. And there are groups around the country and around the world that make it their business to invest in small businesses. But you need to have access to those. And now our businesses do. Now we have the ability through equity crowdfunding to form groups that say, hey, you know what? We're going to invest in real estate. We're going to invest in small Black businesses as a matter of our policy. And now we can begin to educate each other and organize and talk about, hey, what do you think of this business over there? How's the cash flow looking? Tell me a little bit about how I should think through the inventory situation. So we have the opportunity to build and to have conversations that we never had before around actively investing in our communities, whereas everything else has just been conceptual up until this point.
Well, I agree with you. It is ignorant. Mm-hmm. I mean, the trust piece is there, mm-hmm. but when Dwayne did his presentation a few weeks ago, I really looked around the room and I could see and feel the energy of people saying, damn, is this real? No. Is this really possible? And he kept going. And so when you do your piece on, when is it? Friday?
December 20th.
Oh, December the 20th.
That's a Wednesday night from 6 to 8 at the Hyatt.
So it's just you, yourself, or?
Well, Amari is
going to present.
And I'll be presenting one part of that. So what I'm going to be doing on that night is presenting what I call a perfect storm of opportunity. So on one side, we'll talk about business education and the lack of business education in our community, and the fact that some people who either do or want to own businesses are not necessarily adequately prepared for that. The SBAC has a program called SBAC Empower that helps to deal with that at a very affordable level, but at a high efficiency level, to get people trained to be able to run a business effectively according to what they're looking for. Couple that with the reduction in LLC filing fees now, to give you the ability now to take, you've got a $350 reduction in the fees, and now you can use that money to do other things like hire legal help or get business cards or do a promotion on Intellectual Radio on your show or whatever they can do to promote their business. They can start to save that money, but now you can start to really encourage people about the possibility, because some of us didn't go into business because we'd always been afraid that the capital wouldn't be there when we got to that point. Yes. So if I tell you now, not only is the filing fee affordable for you for a good business structure, but there's a program that might cost you up to maybe no more than $250 for 10 weeks of business training and a professional mentor in that industry for 18 months thereafter, and a business plan when you leave the class. And then behind that, you got equity crowdfunding to give you that first round of support if your business is suitable for, if it kind of fits that need. It doesn't keep any business out, but yes. So we're trying to tell you that you have every element of that in place. So that's what the event on Wednesday night is going to be about. So it's a collective of initiatives that the SBAC has undertaken and seen through to the end. But again, they were created for everybody, but the value of that is it's my personal calling to be able to reflect that to the community for those who may not be casually aware. You haven't heard on the news once that bill for LLCs passed. You haven't heard them talk about equity crowdfunding on the news. You haven't heard your legislators talk about it. You didn't hear Barack talk about it when they passed it first on a federal level several years ago, and it became active in 2016. So none of the people who are even responsible for the fact that the law exists have really came out and said, hey guys, do this.
Why, you think?
Well, for one, sometimes laws, as they get passed, are not always passed from the legislative side with the purity of intent to say where they feel like they have to be the trumpeters of that. It's public information, and it needs to be studied and seen by the public. And that's why we need to be paying attention to what's going on.
Dwayne, I know when you gave your presentation down in Springfield, they said, damn, this brother knows this stuff. And they go, and you penetrated to you all's credit. You love our community, you love our folks, you love humanity, but I'm serious. You all know this stuff like the back of your hand. So the last thing, when you articulate, I was like, don't say too much if I was there, because you scared the hell out of them, man. That this cat go, you're not an elitist, but you believe in expanding what you see going on in our community. Because is this the revolution for our community in terms of fixing what's wrong? Because I mean, everybody's been trying to come up with this and that, and we frustrated, and it don't seem like it's getting any better.
Yeah, my theory is that
this a way out?
It's a way to what's next. I say that's for sure. Because you could say that. So what I say is that we've had two major movements in this country as a people. We had the freedom movement of the 1860s, which was mostly a legislative process, and then we had the civil rights Black Power movement, which was involved the protest model. So we took the best of what we learned from the legislative model, mixed up with the protest. I think the conspicuous absence has always been economics up until this point. And now we're in a position to really deal with that. What exactly do we own and control? What is power consist of? How do we slice it and dice it and participate it? And I believe that we're in a better position to begin to consider that than we ever have been before. And we do have models. We do have examples. I mean, despite what you think of them, the Jewish community there's a really good book called The Jewish Phenomenon I recommend people read. And there's this one line in there which I really love, where this Jewish guy is saying, like, hey, look, Jewish people, as much as they might be hated by some, are no longer subject to systematic racism. And that just struck me like, wow, there is an escape to systematic racism. Who cares what people think about you? What we want, and I believe that what people are becoming, is a whole lot more objective about where we stand, and we could care less about what folk think, and they're beginning to see really the truth of how we structure ourselves and organize.
When I hear you speak, and so when you mention the freedom movement and you mention the civil rights and / Black Power, because they different, and then I think about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
That's right.
Of doing for self.
That's right.
See, big difference. No protest. Like, forget about that. Go. Don't say what must be done. Get up and do something.
Greg, I think a lot of us grew up as children hearing our parents tell us, things like the Lord helps those who help themselves. So one day, that day that I did that presentation, I've been talking about this idea of reverse municipal engagement, right? So what happens when the community is helping itself? What does the alderman, the Lord of that community, do for the community when he sees the community helping itself, essentially making his job easier when he goes down to City Hall and he's trying to vie for something for his community, and he can show that we've got 4 or 5 different businesses that are self-funded and used equity crowdfunding, and the community is now working together, gives him a much stronger case. But on the flip side of that, votes are not what guarantees the engagement from your political leaders, it's the money. So if you're in a seat of power, they can use your money to market and buy my vote, but who they're gonna have to serve when the election is done? They gotta serve the money, not the vote. So the vote does not guarantee you anything, no matter how much of it you give. And it's been proven historically across the board. So if we go into a community and we've got 3, 4, 5 businesses now popping up, you haven't asked for TIF money, tax credits, or none of that from them, now they have to come back to you and say, okay, what can we do to help? Because you're clearly on the mark here. You're clearly doing something right. And that's just a natural component of how government works. It respects those who respect and work for their own benefit.
I see an alderman or a state rep sitting at this table or meeting with one of you all or both nervous.
Sure.
Because they know this makes them accountable, not nervous to the degree they're afraid, but knowing that you have placed in front economics. Because we've been taught, and it's a fact, Brother Maury, politics without economics is symbol without substance. Right. And they say, who have the power in your local community? Is it the authoritarians, influentials? The answer on that test was the influentials. The authoritarians have titles, jobs, but the influentials call the shots.
And I think that to any political leaders that might be listening, I think it's something that if they engage it, they can assure themselves of being in office for a lifetime. Because when you engage people that are gonna be dedicated to working to rebuild that community, you have no reason to have to fight at election time. No one would dare run against you when you got out front of this and started to support this type of effort. So I would encourage any political leader watching this call, whether you're a candidate actively or a sitting incumbent in any spectrum, to engage this and use it as a tool to help build your community, because the best way for you to get votes is to perform and to encourage the individual, the independent performance of others. So if the independent performance of a grocer from another community, it gets rewarded at some point by the alderman because they're in there making an investment. And yeah, they might write a check to your campaign. Again, he doesn't live there, so he can't vote there. He's using his money to buy your vote to serve his interests.
Ooh.
So the only way that gets turned around is if we say, we're going to invest this money, we're going to build this community, and now we're going to do it without asking you. If you want to come along, fine, but we don't really need that. I don't need the set aside, the cut aside, because there's plenty of available property for me to open stores, theaters, and everything else that we need to build the basis of a sound economic community. And then if you are doing it without their help, at some point, it's like the Black Hand of the Godfather. He has to come back to you. Either he, the banker, the city have to come back to you and ask you how they can get their beak wet a little. That's really how that works. So you get it done and bring them back to you. When Uber came out, they didn't call the cab companies and ask them, oh, can y'all cut out a little piece for us? They took a piece and then forced them back to the table they were engaged that in reverse.
I love it.
That's disruption. That's making the switch.
And there's a bit of a challenge out there too, because really it's a call to action as well to these and what you were saying was a call to action, but I'd throw a slight twist on it as well, because it requires sort of a relocation for these existing or would-be leaders to really start to relate themselves as leaders. There's not an alderman out there that doesn't want more retail outlets, more service businesses, more manufacturing operations, and mostly they look at it from the standpoint of how can I get these businesses to come in, as opposed to empowering the community then to begin to build institutions in their district. And there's just a sort of a top-down approach that wants to be employed, but you have to really get serious about the degree to which you want to empower the people who are actually already there, living in your districts and wards to put their money to work towards their institutions. We're working on a couple of projects right now, the Quarry being one of them in South Shore. You asked a question about location, the Regal Theater being another one, Culture Connection being another one, Dudley Beauty School being another one. There are a number, the Black Mall being another one. So we have a number of clients who are raising or preparing to actively start raising funds in their respective communities. So the institutions are there in every one of those neighborhoods that are ours. But when you start to empower those people, those potential investors to begin to build for themselves, the institutions that are already there in their communities.
Well, let me tell you something special. The new Black leadership, proud to have brothers like you present this type of expertise, but really life-saving information. This is our survival. This is an angle that has not been worked. And so I am, as one of the members, brother member, we're very, very proud. And that's why we want to bring this kind of information. So you can't claim to be a leader, old, new, or in between, if you're not presenting what's relevant.
That's right.
And what you all have just presented, the whole world will hear this and will know that it's timely. I mean, so real quick, we got 5 minutes. You all can close us out with anything that you'd like to say. I mean, inviting folks to your next seminar that's coming up December the 20th.
Yes.
And anything else you would like to say in closing remarks, because I am absolutely proud of both of you. I love you, man, that you got that kind of spirit. But the real power is the knowledge that you have disseminated.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this has been an active self-study, and I should probably admit, for the sake of full disclosure, that I'm not a classically trained financial person. I never went to college. I've never been an investment banker.
Well, thank you.
Right. So this is just simply a matter of what I see to be very
you from God, brother.
Thank you. Elementary vision, if you will, in terms of seeing something very simple before my eyes, based on having studied it through historical leaders like Marcus Garvey and Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and knowing what I saw when I saw it. So then I go get somebody who knows numbers and that, and we started to work together on that.
How is this man unleavened?
Right. Yes, sir.
Learn.
Yes, sir.
You got the right spirit. That's who he placed it in. Bro.
Yes, sir.
So you have been trained organically.
Yes, the best.
You haven't been programmed. That's
yes,
the thing.
I appreciate
yes,
that.
sir.
Yeah, and I think Dwayne said it. Just all I would say is just check us out, give us a call, 888-227-8255. 888-8790, or check us out online at Comcast.
Say it again to that number.
Yeah, 888-227-8790, or check us out online at ComCapCorp, ComCapCorp.com. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a few big events coming up. It's penciled in right now, but the Quarry's first event is going to be next Tuesday, tentatively speaking, but keep a look at our website, and we'll keep that posted on a daily basis. But check out the website as well for just more information about this process. Give us a call anytime with any questions.
Y'all give our people hope, brother. Anytime you hear
them.
super sharp, all praise is due to the Creator, bro, for the energy, for the knowledge, and more so for the love of our community. True love, because most people come down, game, sickness.
That's right.
Thank you.
Peace
and love. Thank you, audience, for tuning in.
Thank you.
Got some sharp brothers in the crib. That's what we gotta have, man.